Hey there, folks. Tito here. Jeff Thitoff, FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media, bringing you a Buckeye Blitz. You can follow me on Twitter at FitHappens. Also, download the FanStream Sports app. It's free for Apple and Android users. Just download that. We have round-the-clock programming, lots of new stuff coming out every day, new shows coming out all the time. Make sure you check it out. You'll stay up to date on everything in the world of sports. And the Buckeyes coming off a 14-7 win over Texas, number 3 or number 2 versus number 1, depending on which poll you subscribe to, on Saturday. The Buckeyes played in front of more than 107,000 fans. And people I talked to said it was as loud as it's ever been at Ohio Stadium. And that includes really the Tennessee game last year, which up to that point probably was the loudest one. The most intuit crowd, let's put it that way, most electric crowd that Ohio Stadium has seen. That was a night game. It was a playoff game, a lot different than this one. This one here was a noon game on Fox. And we'll go through some things. First, I want to tell you about the Lee Corso thing was pretty cool. Lee Corso's final game, putting on the headgear, final game for ESPN's College Game Day, been doing it for a long time. And he first donned the headgear back in 1996 at an Ohio State game. And he, on that first game, I think it was Penn State, Ohio State, might have been. But that's the first time he put the mascot head on, and it took off, obviously, since then. Only fitting this time, his final game, he also put on the Brutus headgear. The band did a spelled out Corso on the field, which is pretty cool. They did that. They were broadcasting when Corso was doing his pick. They broadcast that throughout the stadium. They were there on the field and they did that. And on top of that, this is pretty cool. Fox broadcast also Lee's final picks live on their station too. So that was pretty cool. Nice little send off there for Lee Corso, who's meant a lot to college football. And if you have a certain age, you don't know college football without Lee Corso. So cool send-off for him. Certainly did well. Certainly was time, but good for him on that one. Oh, by the way, he picked 6 games. I'm trying to go to the 6th one now. He picked like Miami. He picked LSU. He picked Florida State. He picked Ohio State. He picked, I can't think of the 2 he picked now. He picked 2 other teams also to win. And anyway, all 6 of them won. And if you would have put $100 down on all, like a 16 parlay on the money line now, not points, just money line, you would have won about $8,000, a little over $8,000, I believe it was. Maybe, about over $8,000 would have been. So anyway, Corso's gone, legend. Always appreciated his time on College Game Day and watching him there. All right, back to the game. Final score is 14-7. Texas was shut out for the first 56-plus minutes of the game before they finally got into the end zone. The story about this game was really the defense. Ryan Day said when they came out for warm-ups, there weren't many empty seats, which is unusual for a noon kickoff, but he said the atmosphere was great for the team and made a huge difference, especially in the fourth quarter. So, Jermaine Matthews had a great game for Ohio State. He he intercepted Manning, Arch Manning, and then deflected another pass that was tipped another pass that almost got picked off as well. But anyway, he also had 3 tackles in that game. Matthews is somebody who played a big game for this defense. Arvell Reese played a big game. Caleb Downs. You can go across the line on this. I mean, they Bo Atkinson, Edric Houston, all these guys. The defense was incredible. And for all those people that said, Paul Feinbaum included, that they thought Texas was going to blow Ohio State out or that Ohio State was no match for Texas talent-wise, if that's the case, if Texas is more talented than Ohio State, that just speaks volumes to the coaching job that Ohio State did. Matt Patricia's first game as a defensive coordinator for Ohio State couldn't have gone better. He did a fantastic job of disguising his plays and disguising his coverages, mixing things up. And you could see it frustrated Arch Manning and certainly frustrated Texas's coordinators. They could not figure out what to do. Manning looked uncomfortable the entire time. Started to get a little bit of rhythm in the second half, really fourth quarter, but first half, Manning looked completely off his game. He came in with a lot of hype. Texas came in with a lot of hype. And they could not get it going offensively. Now, also at them is a couple times they had 4th downs inside the 10-yard line. One was at the goal line and could not convert. They also, I think, missed another 4th down attempt they had as well. It could have been field goals on a couple of those. Might have been different with the game. Nonetheless, Arvell Reese had a big game for Ohio State. And so the defense as a whole, though, they did a wonderful job of stopping Texas and being strong at the right moments. They did not put a lot of pressure. They didn't get, I think I don't know if they had 1 sack, maybe on Arch, maybe 1 sack it was. But they forced pressure on him, though, that caused him to make decisions quicker than he wanted to. So even though you look at the stat line, and it will say that, Ohio State did not had like a 7-sack game or something. They forced pressure, and they certainly came through at the right time when they had those 4th down plays that Texas tried to convert to first downs. It did get them, but the Ohio State defense couldn't have gone much better. Matt Patricia, anybody who's wondering about the hire, and there were a lot of people when Jim Knowles left and Ryan Day hired Matt Patricia, questioned that decision. There were, and look, initially, I was one that a little head scratcher for me. But as I started talking to other people associated with the program, former players, coaches, whatnot, I became a believer in Matt Patricia. And what really sealed it for me was when I interviewed him out there. We had Bobby Carpenter and I had him on our show on the Morning Juice and interviewed him at practice, spent about 15 minutes with him, and he blew me away. He's such an intelligent man, and he seems genuinely excited to be here. This defense is going to be awesome this year. Anybody underestimated Ohio State's defense is going to be sorely wrong as the season rolls on. This Texas team, look how they do against other teams coming up. They're going to do really well offensively. They've got a really good offense. They've got a really good defense, as they showed on Saturday. But the further we get into the season, the more impressed we are going to be with what Ohio State was able to accomplish on Saturday. Go to the offense now. Julian Sand was not asked to do very much. Ryan Day said after the game, that was by design. As far as, we're going to play pretty close to the vest, pretty conservatively. And Sand ended up going 13 out of 20, 126 yards, 1 touchdown. But there were 4 drops I can think of. I know that there was 2 by Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith dropped his first pass attempt last year, the first pass thrown to him last year, and never had another drop the rest of the year. On Saturday, he had 2. Max Clare dropped 1 as well. That would have been, I think, would have been a first down on that one too. There was one more I can't think off the top of my head what it was, but nonetheless, there were. So even though he's 13 to 20, very easily could have been 17 to 20. So, and again, 126 yards and touchdown, not stats that don't blow you away, but he wasn't asked to do that. He said after the game, Ryan Day said that, yes, that was the design was to do that, is just, not take a lot of risks, see how the game plays out. He praised Brian Hartline calling the game, the plays he called. It worked out really well. And if you're concerned about that, I would say talk to me in a month. They get Grambling next, OU Bobcats after that, and then they got the bye week for the play at Washington. This will look like a much different team when they take the field against Washington. You're going to see them try a lot of new things here against Grambling and OU. They might open it up more. You'll see more players get in there as well. But this was by design, the conservative play call by Ryan Day. Or by Brian Hartline. Gosh, see, Brian Hartline called the game. Of course, Ryan Day's got his hand on it as well. But a great performance by Hartline on that. And the one thing Ohio State, they did a good job protecting Sam. He, they kept him clean all day. Ohio State only had 2 penalties total in the game. The only thing they didn't do as well as I would have hoped is the run game. 34 carries, 77 yards. That's just a little over 2.3 yards a carry. The thing is, when they needed a yard or 2 yards, they got it. C.J. Donaldson had the touchdown for them, but it didn't blow me away. Now, part of it says Texas has good defense. They really do. Texas defense is solid. I want to see, though, in the next 2 weeks, Ohio State flex their muscles in that run game. James People had 10 carries for 20 yards. His long run was 6 yards. Donaldson, by the way, was 67 yards on 19 carries. Donaldson's a beast. I love Peoples too, and I can't wait to see Bo Jackson in the game the next couple weeks here. But they're all really solid, different kind of running backs. Donaldson's a bruiser, and he's got speed too. But, man, they're going to be fun to watch. Ohio State, by the way, I got this off The Athletic. They were held under 250 total yards for the second time since 2017. They had 203 yards in each of these games, 203 against Texas, and also 203 in that Cotton Bowl loss to Missouri. That's the only times since 2017, the Buckeyes have been under 250 total yards. The fact that they were able to do that, 203 total yards, and still beat the top-ranked team in the country says volumes about this team. Ohio State, now they've had, if you look at, there was a big criticism of Ryan Days. He couldn't win the big one, lost too many games against teams that he could have beaten top 5 teams and whatnot. Think about this. The last 5 games Ohio State's played have all been against top 10 teams. And they've beaten them by an average of 14 points a game. The last 7 times they played AP top 10 teams, the last 7 times, they've won all of them. Since they lost to Oregon, they beat Penn State when they were 3rd on the road. They beat Indiana in Columbus, number 5, Indiana. They beat, then the playoff run, they beat Tennessee here, number 7. Oregon, number 1 team. Number 4, Texas. And then they beat number 3, Notre Dame. So now they've got number 1, Texas. So the season are looking up for the Buckeyes, and I'm happy for Ryan Day. If you're somebody who said Ohio State should get rid of Ryan Day after the Michigan game, if you haven't changed your mind by now, nothing's going to change your mind. Nothing will get you to flip on that one. But I want you to look at the Alabama situation they're in right now. Alabama hired Caleb DeBoer. He went 8-4 last season, lost to Vanderbilt, lost to Oklahoma. A bad Oklahoma team got blown out by Oklahoma, missed the playoff. Okay? Now, they lose to Florida State in a game they're a 2-touchdown favorite. They're 8-5 under Caleb DeBoer. It might end up being a not great hire for Alabama. How hard is it to bounce back from that? Look how long it took for other schools that made bad hires. USC still hasn't come all the way back yet. I'm not saying Lincoln's not the right guy, but they had some bad hires. Took them a long time to get to where they got to Pete Carroll. Notre Dame, with their hires they were questionable, set them back a while. Michigan, Rich Rod, Brady Hoke. Texas had a run of bad hires for a while there. There's been so many schools. Oklahoma, when they had Gary Gibbs. Miami's had bad hires. Florida State's had bad hires. Florida's had bad hires. All these other schools have made questionable coaching hires and then make changes, and they get set back. Nebraska's still not back. Nebraska, since they got rid of Bo Pelini, and who they have after that, they had the guy who went over to OU after that. His name's escaping me. But anyway, since they did that, Frank Solich, since they did that, look at Nebraska's program, what they've done. So you need to keep things in perspective when you're talking about if you want to make a coaching change as a head football coach for Ohio State. Ryan Day's done a fantastic job. Yes, he needs to beat Michigan. But I want you to understand something. The Michigan game is not as important as it used to be. Now, let me explain this. It's not as important as it used to be. You can still be passionate about it. The reason the Michigan game used to be so important was because for years, this is like 60s and 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever it was. For years, only one Big Ten team got to go to a bowl game. Just one Big Ten team went to the Rose Bowl. Everyone else did not go to a bowl. That was it. And typically, a lot of those years, Ohio State and Michigan, that game came down to who was going to, it was a de facto, it was elimination games, what it was. Who's going to go to the Rose Bowl? Who's going to stay home? That's when the rivalry got really, really intense. Now, that intensity has been carried on for generations now. It's generational now as far as where it's at. And even in the 70s, a lot of times, Ohio State, Michigan, winner goes to the Rose Bowl. Okay? But now they started having teams go to other bowls. Rose Bowl was obviously the goal. Rose Bowl, when the Rose Bowl was strictly Big Ten versus Pac-10, when that's all it was, you had to win that game to go to the best possible bowl game you could go to. Now it's changed. And because there was the BCS, there was obviously now the CFP we're dealing with now and things like that. But the game, you can still be as passionate about Ohio State, Michigan as you've always been. I am. I'm as passionate about that game as I've ever been. And it sucks Ohio State's lost recently to Michigan. It's bad. Ohio State needs to start winning again against Michigan. But it's less important now to win that game, as Ohio State proved last year. And if you want to argue with me on that, I want to ask you, would you rather have had Michigan's season last year or Ohio State, because Michigan won the rivalry game. And if you say I'd rather win the rivalry game than win the championship, national championship, then you're never going to be satisfied, in my opinion. Because I would much rather do what Ohio State did last year. And yeah, the Michigan loss sucked. I'd much rather have that season last year than have an 8-4 season or whatever it was. Michigan ended up with 9-4, whatever it was. But I'd much rather have the Ohio State season. I don't want them to lose every year. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just telling you, you can be passionate about it, but it can also be less important than it used to be. Both can be the same. Both can coexist, have those feelings. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in. We had a lot to talk about this week leading into the Grambling game. We'll find out more about, maybe some of the game plan stuff they might look at, the depth charts that comes out. I don't see many changes in that, but we'll certainly hear from Ryan Day and discuss that as well. I'm Jeff Thitoff. Tito, they call me, at @ThitHappens on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter there, and also FanStream Sports powered by DSP Media. Download the FanStream Sports app. It's free for Apple and Android users, and get all of our programming. Thanks so much. We'll tune in again soon.